Hello, Drunkduckers. This is the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Ozone Ocean, with me is Tance and Bainzarine. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to the Quackcast.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome.
Today we're talking about the art of the tease. So this is something that I've pursued with Bottomless Waitress and Pinky TA, somewhat in Pinky TA, but mainly Bottomless Waitress, really mainly. And the art of the tease, it's an interesting thing. It's where you keep someone sort of hung on the line of expecting something or seeing something, but you never actually show it. But because it's an art, it means they don't get pissed off about that. They can keep on hanging on, and they can keep on hanging on perpetually. And it just works because we're sort of, inbuilt. We have inbuilt sort of systems within our brain and within our the way we think, the way we're wired, so we don't mind hanging on if the thing is well written, well crafted enough. With Bottomless Waitress specifically, it's sexual, it's sort of it's manipulating you or drawing you in via the appeal of sort of sexual things, but never actually going in and going deeper. Like it sort of pretends to it. So it promises this stuff, but it's never actually going all the way. And I really like that's fun to do. And I like reading this stuff myself. I love ecchi anime, which is the form that takes for anime. And yeah, I love doing it. But we're not talking about that now. We're having to bring up the featured comic. So the featured comic this week was a comic that I featured myself. I featured a comic called Pit Rats. So I'm going to tell you about Pit Rats now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Pit Rats. The lowly pit rats have been sent down to the cursed and dangerous lands below the city to assist the military in collecting the body of the dead oligarch, the city's former ruler. The pit rats have experience and special talents for dealing with the fatal perils below the city, while the military have no idea what they're up against. If they don't listen to the advice of the despised pit rats, it looks to be a very bloody and disastrous experience. This is a dramatic steampunk fantasy action war story. Things carry on at a swift and regular pace. The art is crisp, stylized, consistent, honed, and professional. Henry Mueller is a creator who clearly knows what they're doing. So read Pit Rats, created by Henry Mueller, and it's rated E for everyone. And that was the featured comic, Pit Rats. Alright, so next up we're talking about the featured music. Gomels has given us the theme to a comic called The Werewolf Prince. The Werewolf Prince. And this music I would describe as howling portents of canine savagery and music that bounces in with an understated menace, which is softened by airy synth tones that soar and dance. So take it away, Gummels, with your theme to The Werewolf Prince. And that was Gummerless's theme to The Werewolf Prince. Okay, let's talk about the art of the tease. The art of the tease. Now, of course, for me, this is the ecchi manga, really, or manga, the way people say it. Anime. That's really the thing. Ecchi anime is really like the apex of this sort of style, where it's not hentai, which is full on, sexual stuff. It's always on the edge of showing you something rude or showing you something naughty. Always just skirting around. And it's not just the fact that, it's censored and you can't see that. Most of the time, that does exist, that does happen. But most of the time it does it just by like cutting away before it shows you the thing. Or just showing you like the edges of some kind of sexy thing and like leading up to a sexy situation, but never actually, going all the way, never actually like going to completion. And that's such a great skill. And we're sort of doing the same thing with Bottomless Waitress in that, I say that, but like I have gone beyond the bounds, sort of. I don't know, maybe I haven't. Maybe I've just gone like really, 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 really right way up close to the boundary, but never actually past it. And that's the whole fun of the thing in the art of the tease. You're keeping someone hanging on for looking at something like transgressive or sexy or whatever, but never actually showing them. But they never get pissed off because our brains are sort of hardwired because we've got like the drive to procreate, all this kind of stuff, that the inbuilt kind of sexual interest in things. We're hardwired to be to accept this kind of stuff and to be driven by it, and to have our brains like pursue this kind of line of inquiry or to pursue this idea, and we just is to it. And this is also a thing, like people go, but no, not me, that doesn't affect me because I'm like, grey sexual or whatever, all these different things. But no, this sort of goes beyond that kind of stuff, because it's not actually something that like gets you horny. It's not something that actually engages that level of sexual interest. It's more like, it's more sort of on a higher level. And this does affect people who are, not so sexually engaged. It does work on most people. So even if you don't have that much interest in sexuality, so it's a very successful way of doing stuff. So yeah, that's the thing. And we'll sort of talk about like techniques about how to do this, and fun things that we've tried and examples. But anyway, so Baines, you want to take this into the horror realm and the thriller. So
Yeah, we could.
I'll let you do that as well.
Yeah, we could do that. I'll comment on what you said. I agree, and I like that you pointed out that it's not. I mean, at least this is how I took it. It's not like you're promising to deliver something and then not delivering it.
Mm.
And this kind of etchy genre is very well established. So people, I think anyway, this applies to me, and I think it applies to many people, just because the genre itself is so established and popular already, that is the point. We're there for that kind of etchy, the teasing thing and the almost but not quite kind of thing. It's just got that sort of charge to it, and it's appealing to read, but it's not like, I mean, hopefully, maybe sometimes, but hopefully it's not like people are like, okay, when do we get to the good stuff? Like, that would be different and people would get annoyed, I think. You're promising something and not delivering. This, like, the kind of promise is the whole point.
Yeah,
Of
exactly.
enjoying this kind of thing. Yeah, so
Exactly. Because, if you want the other thing, then you leave this and you go and look at, hentai. But yeah, so ecchi is a great name for this. Obviously, this kind of style of teasing stuff has always existed. The Japanese didn't invent it with their ecchi. That's just a good name for it because, like, I don't know what do we call it in English? Like sex comedies. That's confusing because you automatically think that there's sex in there, which in sex comedies, no, there's not, because to do a comedy, it's not really helped. I mean, when you do like porn, you don't have much comedy in that because what people really want to see is the porn, not the comedy. So,
Yeah,
so sex comedy means you don't have actual sex; you just have a promise of sex. But yeah, ecchi is far better term for this. But yeah, like famous ones like the British show Three Men. No, was it The Man About the House? And then there's a famous American version with oh god, I can't remember. Baines, you'd know it.
Oh yeah, you mean Three's Company?
Three's Company. Yeah, that was the American. Oh, yeah, Three's Company was, and that was a famous, super famous one. You know, prime time sort of thing. And like the point is, like with these sorts of uh, teasing comedies, is it's not just limited like porn will be to like a very adult audience. This is like general interest. This is mainstream kind of stuff. It's everybody can watch this, and you don't have to feel like awkward or whatever when you see it too, because it's only like on the edges of and suggesting these naughty things, but never actually going all the way. The Carry On films, the famous British film series from the 1960s and 70s.
I finally saw one of those for the first time, just like in the past year or so.
Oh,
I think
really?
it was Carry On Camping.
Yes, the famous one.
That's the famous one, yeah. Sid James, the main guy, was really funny.
Oh, it's
I
insane.
found it hilarious that they were telling this story for teens, kind of, but all the actors were like 50 plus. It was hilarious. Like Sid James was like having these like spicy like confrontations with his would-be girlfriend's mother, and he's like 60 years old. The mother's like 75. It's like hilarious. But Sid was really funny, and yeah, I enjoyed it. It wasn't particularly sexy, I didn't think, but it was more a comedy.
Yeah, it's a stylized, sexy thing because
But
yeah,
that's the
they're
thing
all a
that
bit
stood
older
out
at
the
that
most.
stage.
Yeah, were the ages of the people. The ladies were a little younger, but they weren't 20 somethings either. You know, like they were all mature adults in this story. So pretty funny.
Well, that's another thing. Yeah, so this style of stuff doesn't have to be all young, busty, sexy people. It can be any age can work with it as long as you got the situations. That's all you have to do. Just set the situation, the expectations up,
Yeah.
and yeah. So yeah, the Carry On stuff highly recommended if you like crazy sex comedies. Although if you watch quite a few, they do get a bit formulaic. But yeah, Kenneth Williams, I think he's the one of the main guys.
I don't know. I just know Sid James. I know the name, and he stood out. I don't know if he wrote them. Wasn't he the creative force behind these movies too?
I think I
But
can't remember. I think they all were.
okay, they're like a troupe.
Yeah, pretty much.
He
And
stood out as sort of a particularly like a comedic force to me. Like I liked what he was doing, but that's the only one I've seen. So.
oh yeah, Sid James definitely has a long history of being a great British comedian. You know, he started out with Hancock's Half Hour. Well, that was one of his things. Hancock and a lot of other great comedians. So yeah, and he just played himself the whole time. But anyway, we're kind of shifting off from the thing here. But yeah, so the Carry On films are a great example of this kind of sex comedy. in America they had many good sex comedies. Say in the 1970s, that was the heyday of the era. Things like was it Meatballs? I think Porky's. There's a famous one.
Yeah, well, Porky's is Canadian. Let's not.
What really?
It is absolutely. Let's not give it all to the Americans.
Okay. Well,
yeah, Bob Clark, who, the modern sex comedy that came out before Meatballs. I think we have to give Porky's a lot of credit for creating the teen sex comedy in its modern iteration, sort of late 70s into the 80s.
Yeah.
And then later it's American Pie. But yeah, Porky's kind of was the pioneer there.
Porky's,
Canadian. Yeah.
Which was okay, so Porky's came about at a weird time because that was in the 70s. They had this weird kind of retro comeback of the 50s. And there were so many things that were doing that. Happy Days,
yes,
American Graffiti, and
it is a period. Yes, that's right. It was It was American Graffiti and Happy Days, and then Porky's was also set in the 50s. Yeah, it's a good point.
Exactly. So many other things like what was that movie with transsexual Transylvanian
Rocky Horror
Rocky Horror Show, yeah, set in the 1950s as well. Funnily enough, just everything. Bat Out of Hell with Meatloaf. That's all about this kind of thinking back to that time. Billy Joel's Innocent Man. I think not Innocent Man. One of his Billy Joel's famous albums. With it's all about that. Anyway, yeah. So Porky's was set in this 1950s sort of weird stuff, and it has fantastic sex comedy and a million different sequels of varying quality. But yeah, the Americans produced, ran with that and produced a whole lot of different really bad ones. Vice Girls is one of my favorite D movie series, which just gets worse and worse, but it's also good. It's so bad it's good. See if you can ever see the Vice Girls series.
Oh.
It's just so bad. But in the modern era, there's American Pie and a few other kind of things like that. They've always been, these things go on kind of like a trajectory. Like, oh my god, this is so fun, this is so cool when they get introduced, and then very quickly you get embarrassed by them and they're awkward. As these new things, like American Pie 2, American Pie 3, whatever, Porky's 3 or whatever, you just think, oh god, this cringe. Ugh. So you're not cringing so much at the fact that it's, not delivering or promising, whatever. You're just cringing at the fact that it's just unimaginative and very crude. Because it's very hard to write a good, like, ecchi comedy, really, isn't it? Like,
it's hard to keep it like tactful, I guess, in a sense.
Yes, tactful.
To have a kind of elegance, because it can really devolve into like the equivalent of potty humor really easily. So
often, it really can. You have to maintain a kind of a class doing it, like you say, Tance, and have other things as well. So you're not just into it just for the sex comedy. That's just the kind of the genre you're working in. But like with Bottomless Waitress, we've got all different levels of stuff happening there. Relationship comedy and relationship drama and stuff about the cafe, all that kind of stuff. So you're not just limiting it to one aspect of it, which I think that's where it can really collapse, when people just focus too much on the sex. Because the sex should be in the environment. It shouldn't be the main focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it should also have, it's, I guess, kind of like a pepper. If you have too much pepper, then it's inedible. But if you have just enough, it brings out all the flavors in a sense.
Exactly.
But I'll admit, I have rarely seen that kind of balance being struck. Of course, I haven't really seen that many, which is why I have been silent. But if you do have like a balanced, like sexually, like raunchy, I would say, comedy,
Raunchy, yeah. There you go.
then it's very enjoyable. So,
True.
Yeah.
I used to devour this when I was much younger. I used to absolutely love this genre. And I watched many things in it, and yeah, there's even more that I haven't seen.
Oh, there's tons of them. I mean, I have to admit that when I was a teenager, I would look for this stuff, and at the time it was video stores, and like a young teenager, I'm talking. Of course, I grew out of it, but I would go looking for these movies, and this was often a case of like the covers of these movies were eye popping, and you couldn't wait to watch it as a teen boy. But so many of them I found were not delivering. Like they were promising more sexiness, and that's what I wanted, and not really. It wasn't really there. It was just kind of fairly bland comedy a lot of the time.
But there are some classic ones. Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm thinking of lower tier ones, but there were some great ones that were funny, and like that little bit of sex was enough, or sexiness or teasing was enough for a teen. Like for me anyway, it was enough to be really enticing. And you also love the characters, you love the story, all that stuff. Yeah, Revenge of the Nerds, which is man, that movie is there's a lot of nudity in that movie.
Best comment of the whole Quackcast.
It's more than I would have thought. I didn't I wasn't super into it or excited about it, but embarrassingly, my mom took us to that movie.
Oh my
And
god.
she
oh no!
and my mom was not happy. I remember her saying, like, this is a PG movie, like a parental guidance rated. She was very unhappy. It's like literally scenes in the women's shower and like you can see everything. I was actually a little too young. What's that, Ted?
She needed to guide you though. So
yes.
Yeah,
parental
guidance. Well, like Revenge of the Nerds is a weird one because it does go like the tastes and the morals of the world have changed since that movie came out, and so many things depicted in that movie are just not on. Like that's not cool. That's not cool. That's not funny. That's like, like that's bad. You would go to jail for that. So, like, yeah. Honestly.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there's certain things that are like, yeah, that's probably wouldn't be considered funny by most people.
But it was back then. But yeah, it's not now.
Yeah, back then it was just like, it's a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But Revenge of the Nerds 2, that kind of like that is redeems Revenge of the Nerds 1, which is a bit more transgressive than it should be. Yeah. So Revenge of the Nerds 2.
I'm curious to see them again. There are like 3 of them, I think, or 2 or 3.
3, I think you're right. Yeah.
Maybe there's more direct to video, but it's been so long. I remember almost nothing about them.
The weirdest thing I remember was that one of the main guys from Revenge of the Nerds 1, and he does sort of momentarily feature in the second one, was one of the main guys from Top Gun. One of the dorks.
Yeah, he was the star, one of the 2 stars of the first one, and then cameo in the second. Then he never. He was the star of ER, the show ER later.
Yeah, he was. And I love it how like he dies in Top Gun, so he's not in all of Top Gun, but he's also like he's not even in Revenge of the Nerds 2. Like you say, he's a cameo, so it's like it's Ghost, the ghost of Goose. He's come back.
He goes to Gilbert. His name Gilbert. I do remember.
Yeah, but also Goose in
Goose.
Top Gun.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But yeah, that's another aspect. Being careful about the limits and the things you can show and should show. You know, actually, speaking of that, an excellent thing to comment on that was Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I love. Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a gorgeous, funny series, and they did a whole episode based on them going up to the mountains to go skiing, and it was like a spoof of an actual movie about, I mean, there's so many movies about that topic, you know, going up to the mountains skiing, and then, oh, our scrappy little ski lodge is going to get bought out by the evil developer, and we have to do like a ski race against the guys from the sophisticated ski lodge who want to buy our ski lodge and turn it into their own little thing.
Wow.
And so there's an actual movie about that, and they actually had one of the stars from that movie in the episode.
That's cool.
As an older guy, which he was, you know, because it's like 20 years later. And yeah, they're actually, you know, exploring all those tropes that I was talking about that would be problematic today, and they're going, hang on, this isn't on, you can't do that, that's perverted. No, sorry, that's not what which makes it even funnier. Yeah, so yeah, definitely recommend that. Yeah, so the sex comedy, or the raunchy comedy as Tance more correctly calls it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them push really. There's maybe like crossover with the gross out humor. It's less sexy and cheesy than, I mean, it's sexual, but then it's like a lot of it is about really gross, horrible things happening. Like,
that's a modern thing. That's from American Pie, really.
Yeah, there's something about Mary maybe really kickstarted it.
Oh, Hot Tub Time Machine. Right. That's another modern version. So that's like a reboot of the reboot of the reboot of the sex comedies. Because after American Pie kind of went and then killed it, Hot Tub Time Machine revived it again. But yeah, this is a genre that keeps on zombifying, keeps on resurrecting. It's the Jesus of genres. It dies and then it comes.
Well, I mean, it'll change over time, obviously, as the culture changes and things change. But it's tapping into the primal human.
Yeah. Well, there are always in Greece they are called like shocking jokes, like jokes that revolve around sex and sexual stuff, and they are called shocking, and they can be very crass, like so crass it's not even funny. But there are a few that are very, very elegant, like witty. If you can keep it witty, it will be funny and it will be enjoyable, even if it is, you know, bordering on the inappropriate.
Right.
But yeah, you mentioned there's something about Mary. I hated that comedy because it not for the sexual stuff that I could even get behind, but it was so like the jokes didn't land. At least for me, they didn't land. They could do a lot better with the guy needing to deal with his libido,
right,
and keep it kosher. So yeah, I don't know.
I like the film. There are aspects I didn't like. Like I love the fact. What's his name? Oh, names of the actors aren't coming to my head. Matt Dillon, or Dillon something or other.
Yeah.
His character is just fantastic because he plays this evil, scheming kind of private detective.
Yeah.
And the way he tries to crack on to Mary is beautiful. Like,
yeah.
He's trying really hard. He's saying, "Yeah, babe, I love these retards." He's just using all the wrong language.
Yeah, okay, he was funny.
He was.
The thing I didn't like in the premise of the movie was that they didn't give her even one guy that was actually upstanding. They were all like,
they're all dicks, yeah.
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 Not even like they should have had at least one that is upstanding, and he could be a doofus, and he could be awkward, and he could generate comedy, but actually be the straightforward guy for her to choose. Like, why do you give her a multiple choice of dads? So yeah, that's what I did like.
I just did not like the English guy who was meant to be the famous architect. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Because he does physical comedy. I hate his physical comedy. I've always hated it. Like trying to balance on crutches. Oh, just never have him in a movie at all. That's not proper physical comedy. Physical comedy is Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
It's not wonky leg guy.
It felt, you know what? It felt very juvenile. Like it was not written by an adult, but it was written by a kid that has just grasped certain concepts and is just throwing everything at the wall willy nilly and making really weird patches on the wall. So yeah.
Although I did love the aspect that actually, I'm really like I'm smitten by this Mary lady, and I really would like because I've developed this crush, and Silico says, stalking thing, yeah, standard stalking. Like they're very open about like he's thinking of it as this unrequited love, and it'd be just lovely to get together with my dream girl and say, standard stalk. No, it's not stalking. And yeah, actually, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You're a sad bastard.
You feel yourself, at least I did, like supporting this guy. You're kind of on his side because the movie's from his point of view. But yeah, he is. It's creepy.
Yes. And I love that they're open about that. It's not a good thing to do. It's creepy, and you're all being creepy because they're all trying to like woo her and win her over, and this is not cool. And in the end, I love it how he thinks that she has fallen for her ex-boyfriend, the football guy, and he goes out "Oh yes, I've brought him back to you because I know what I did was not right, and I accept that he's trying to be the bigger man," and then he's leaving, he's crying, he's bawling his eyes out, ugly crying, really ugly. That is my favorite part.
Yeah,
trying to be the bigger man and just go.
It was sweet to me. I mean, I liked it. What I think the worst part of it for me is that absolute tidal wave of imitators and the raunchiness that I'm not usually a fan of, but so many movies with such gross comedy came out because that movie was so successful.
Yeah.
You had all the imitators for the next few years, like the slasher thing back in the end of the 70s, Halloween, Friday the 13th. And then you have all these imitators that just flood the market and killed that genre after a few years. Similar thing happened there.
Because they focus on the wrong aspects, really.
Well, it just gets more hacky, I guess, and maybe there's just too much of it.
But I think they do. There is an element of that focusing on the wrong aspects in that because slasher makes it popular, so let's just have way more slashing in this film. There's way more slashing, whereas there's a balance between that and the story. It's like in sex comedies.
Then you cut corners on setting a mood and having a story, and yeah, for sure.
In sex comedies, it's not just about the gross out joke. The gross out joke is the one thing, and that's this is just the thing. Like in Something About Mary, it's the sperm in the hair, pretty much. That's that main thing, or his locking his nuts in his zipper in the beginning.
Whoa.
That. So those are those particular things, but that's not the whole thing. Oh, American Pie, it's like the pie, pretty much.
Right.
And the thing about this one time at band camp. It's not the whole thing, isn't that? There's a lot more to it. Whereas the imitators who continue on with it, they tend to focus overly much on those aspects and just turn the whole thing into that and nothing else.
Just trying to up the ante on the grossness or on the whatever element.
Well, say in like sex comedies, like rather than just being like a superficial flavor to it, then that will be their main focus, and that no longer becomes interesting because.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's more to it than just copying certain elements.
Yeah, as say Bottomless Waitress, when the main joke isn't that they're bottomless.
Yeah.
But in a bad sex comedy that is taking up with the the genre, that's the main joke. That's what that would be, and they would always be focusing on jiggling bums in your face. And they'd be missing the point.
That was the original title, Jiggling Bums in Your Face. So I'm glad we reworked that. Yeah.
That'll be the spin-off.
Yeah.
It would grow older really fast if that was the approach.
Yes.
Whereas now everything becomes funny just because nobody's paying attention to the bums.
Yeah, to me, that's what it is. Like, that's kind of, we're telling sort of sitcom stories, and I won't say they're great. I'm writing it. I'm not going to claim it's any kind of level of anything. I have no idea. But what Tan said is what I really love about it. Ozone Ocean's art, and then the fact that they're not wearing bottoms, but it's never commented on. Like, they could be wearing clothes, and it would be the exact same stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really
it just has that level of frisson in there because you introduce that element. It's unusual.
And technically, we never actually see their bum because we never see the crack.
Right.
It's not what it's cracked up to be.
No. So technically, we are not seeing the bottomlessness, and I really like that.
You mean we're not seeing a full view of they're usually hidden, or what did you mean?
Well, say every time I show them from the back, we have the apron straps, and the apron straps are just dangling right down the middle of the bum.
That's right. Okay, let's make sure to keep that going.
Yeah. Because you have bathing suits that are literally strapped down the middle.
Bathing that show more.
Yeah. So excuse my dog dropping his chew toy. And it's just enough bottomlessness, but very tactful, and I really like it.
That's a good point.
The skirt around this the aspects of it, which makes it more fun and more interesting than going all the way.
Yeah, that's a good point. See, a lot of this is kind of accidental a lot of the time, I think. It's happening accidentally for the good, and then it can be ruined accidentally.
What's that?
Like this delicate balance of having something that works as a comedy and as a sort of having those elements as a tease. It holds together in a way. Can hold together by accident if you're not thinking about it, or it can fall apart by accident if you show too much or you do too much. So it's tough. It's not easy to keep things like this working, because you don't always know exactly. Speaking for myself, anyway, I don't always know exactly like, well, why is this working, and what would be too far, what might ruin it.
Yeah, very true. It's a complicated frisson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fascinating to work within. It really is.
Yeah, I know I mentioned it on Patreon, but the idea of sort of hinting at something scary is going to happen in a horror movie or a thriller is similar. It's a brother or a cousin to this topic that you brought up. I really like that kind of thing where a kidnapping almost happens, but it's foiled. Say in the Fugitive movie where he's almost caught, it looks like there's no way out, but at the last second, things are not what it seems, and he's able to keep going. And he doesn't get out of the entire plot by that kind of trickery, so that's wouldn't want to do that. But in the middle, leading up to the final climax of the movie, you have these teases that really prime you emotionally, keep you with them, keep you on the edge of your seat, and that's the thriller version of teases, or the horror movie where the people all like it seems like they're going to die, but then they don't, is just as effective or more than just having a death every 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, way more, way more. Keeping the black guy alive is the best version of that.
Yeah, I kind of well, sure.
Not the best version, but a good version of that. Because that had become
And
a trope. They always die first, and
yeah.
it's shit.
Or the slutty girl instead of the pure one.
Right.
Keep her alive, because usually the slutty girl is the one that gets murdered.
It's true.
The one that is sexually promiscuous.
I mean, when we're saying this does subvert expectation, but that's not why the thing what we're talking about, because your expectation is that they will get killed, and so you're expecting that, but it never happens for the whole thing, so it just teases you towards it. So yeah, these things cross over, so it's not just subversion of expectation.
And the one thing I really did like was in one of the Alien movies. I mentioned that before we started recording. In one of the Alien movies, there is a guy in a wheelchair that you feel is going to be the first one to die at the fangs or teeth or jaws or whatever of the monster, of the alien. And he's the one that survives, and he doesn't. It takes effort to have him survive. Like he gets a lot of close saves, and that's amazing. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it can work well. Yeah, this crossover between subversion of expectation and teasing you, and it goes quite well in thrillers and just any genre really, where you can make that happen and you can keep someone hanging on, expecting something to happen but never actually showing it. And we're not talking about like that you want it to happen necessarily. It's just that the story would seem to point towards this thing happening. or like
it
tradition would point towards it happening
yeah.
as well.
I,
Things like that.
honestly, I think it works better if you don't want it to happen. You feel that it will happen, like everything shows that it will happen. You don't want it to happen, and then eventually it doesn't happen, and it's good.
But very few things do manage to do that. Because writers or producers or director, who's ever in charge of the final product will go, yeah, that's good, but actually we want to see that happen. So sorry, you'll have to change that. You have to change that and write that in so that this thing happens. But it's always better when it doesn't. That's why I say I like the not the director's cut. I like the cinematic version of Blade Runner better because, say, in the director's cut version, I can't remember, but a lot of people talk about it. It's the fact that, this girl dies in the end anyway, and yeah, she's only got a year to live. Oh yeah, and Decker's really a replicant, and blah blah blah, and it's just like, shut the hell up! Like, you're idiots. You're limiting this world that could be so big and so interesting and offer so many like further examples, further like stories, and you're encapsulating it too much. Like, everything is finite in your bloody version. And this goes for Ridley Scott as well, because he was behind the director's cut version, because none of that was actually in the original story that was produced, because Ridley Scott was really, back then, was a terrible writer, and he was a scene maker. He would make scenes, and then the editors would put them all together in a great story, because he came from the advertising world, so he was amazing at coming up with the ideas and stuff like that. But the story wasn't something that was crystallized, even when he was doing the whole film together, and that it came together in the editing room. So that's why, the whole director's cut thing really doesn't make much sense, because he didn't have that original notion when he was doing the whole thing originally. So yeah, I think it's way better when the whole, is Deckard what is Deckard? Does this woman really live happily ever after with him? You don't know anything. So that's all kind of left up to viewer expectation. That's why one thing I hate about the sequel to Blade Runner, because it just goes with that director's cut idea version, and everything is encapsulated. There's no more mystery to those kind of aspects. It's going with that one particular interpretation of the film, of the original film, which lessens the original film a lot.
I mean, doesn't it kind of, I don't know my Blade Runner mythos well enough, but doesn't the sequel ignore the director's cut? Because the sequel says that Deckard was not a replicant. Because he's still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive, but I don't know whether that's, because he's an advanced version. Like,
oh, I thought, okay, maybe I'm mistaken. I thought it confirmed that he was human in the sequel, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
So I think one way of looking at it is like everybody is like a replicant, and that's that area. There's no real humans aren't really a thing anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll watch it again.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, it's I just didn't like it because Blade Runner is a film that doesn't need a sequel. Blade Runner is a film that needs an expanding of its world. So it doesn't need a sequel so much as just making the world bigger, exploring different aspects of that world. And that's what that kind of idea needs, rather than just continuing this story with someone else and having a cameo of Harrison Ford. Oh my God. Yeah, that's what we want to see from a Harrison Ford film, to have him come in and have a cameo like frickin' Force Awakens. And now we're off topic. Now we're off topic. But this Quackcast is going to end in like 2 minutes. And we brought Star Wars into it. Oh, God.
I mean, your mentioning of The Force Awakens makes me think of the dark side of the tease, which is the mystery box. or one of the dark sides of the tease, where it's sort of in the marketing, you have no idea what the thing is about. Yeah, so that's your marketing mystery box. It can work, but it can be a cheat, and it can be like, you can often find that there's nothing in the box. Similar with the show Lost. Like, why are we here? And the answer ended up being pretty unsatisfying to the fans, apparently.
There was an answer in the end.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
you don't.
And that answer was.
What?
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Quackcast number 657.
Yay.
Talk to you next week. We're going to talk about musicals next week.
Yay!
Musicals.
I know a lot more about that.
Sing in the rain.
Oh God!
I don't know any other musicals.
I
do. Xanadu, Xanadu. Oh, now we are here.
Please end this.